1600.
WWRL.
New York.
An Access One communications radio station.
Kurland's on the air. It's Yetta Kurland live. Yetta Kurland, listening.
Well, good evening. Happy May Day, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Yetta Kurland Live. I am your host, Yetta Kurland, and tonight we'll be speaking with Hudson Taylor of Athlete Ally, as well as District Leader Paul Newell about sports and the LGBTQ community. Then we'll speak with Athena Reich, Libertore and Leigh Fondakowski about LGBTQ arts in New York City and a new play, No Need for Seduction, at Dixon Place. I first want to thank our media partners, Go Magazine, Labor Press, the Soho Journal, Westview News, and the New Civil Rights Movement for helping make this show happen, as well as our community sponsors, the Ritz. You can pick up a copy of Westview News at 69 Charles Street in the West Village. Check out Go Magazine at your local newsstand or go to gomag.com, the Soho Journal at sohojournal.com, the New Civil Rights Movement at the newcivilrightsmovement.com, and Labor Press is at laborpress.org. Also, you can listen to us live stream at wwrl1600.com, and please join us on Facebook at Yetta Kurland Live, on Twitter at Yetta Kurland, and check us out on the Huffington Post at huffingtonpost.com/Yetta. This week in the news, people around the world celebrated May Day today, the International Labor Day. Here in New York, thousands of people marched for immigration reform and workers' rights, as well as saving public facilities like the post offices in the area. Senator Chuck Schumer reiterated his commitment to including LGBT families in immigration reform, while conservative forces planned to kill the passage of immigration equality altogether. The George W. Bush Presidential Library opened in Texas this week as former Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor publicly announced she regretted her decision in the Bush v. Gore, the 2000 decision that enabled the first Bush presidency and thereafter a slew of bad things to happen. Civil unions became illegal in Colorado today, and Delaware's legislature passed a marriage equality bill that came out of committee. And headlines were made worldwide when NBA center Jason Collins came out of the closet and onto the cover of Sports Illustrated. We'll be talking about equality, politics, sports, the arts, love, and more with Hudson Taylor, Athena Reich, Libertore, Leigh Fondakowski. David Badash will also be joining us from the New Civil Rights Movement. Call in with questions, 212-868-0975. Again, that number is 212-868-0975. Or you can tweet them if you're a little shy to call into the air on air. You can tweet them at Yetta Kurland using the hashtag AskYetta. We'll be happy to take those questions via tweet or at 212-868-0975. Again, that number is 212-868-0975. Let's start our first segment. First of all, Paul Newell, thanks for joining us on this side of the microphone.
Always a pleasure to be with you.
Paul Newell is the downtown Democratic District Leader. He is the producer of our show. He is the father of Zot. We were just talking about cats today. What else?
I'm a big Knicks fan. I'm a big Knicks fan. Upset tonight about that, and I'm upset that Jason Collins is a Celtics guy, but
Really? We're going to have a little bit of that? Okay, all right, we'll bring that into the show. Everyone, I feel like, the Reverend talked about Jason Collins earlier. I feel like everyone's still talking about Jason Collins. It's the lead topic.
Indeed. Well, we'll be talking about it tonight.
Yeah, we'll have to tie the connection. Think about how to do this. May Day and Jason Collins. I'm sure that there's some segue there, some interconnection.
The playoffs.
All right, so let's start with Hudson Taylor. Hudson Taylor is a 3-time All-American wrestler, a wrestling coach at Columbia University, and the founder and executive director of Athlete Ally. It's an organization dedicated to fighting homophobia and bullying in athletics at all levels. He's a recipient of PFLAG's Straight Ally for Equality Award, and we're thrilled to have him on Yetta Kurland Live tonight. Hudson, thanks for taking time to come on the air with us.
Thanks so much for having me.
Great. I had the chance to sit on a panel with Hudson a few weeks ago at the United Nations to talk about LGBTQ issues. It's always great to have articulate and hardworking straight allies doing great stuff like this. And next, David Badash is the founder and editor of the New Civil Rights Movement. It's a journal of news and opinions on gay rights and the marriage equality. He's a regular contributor here on Yetta Kurland Live. We're delighted to have him with us again tonight. David, thanks for joining us here on Yetta Kurland Live.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Sure. If you've got questions for Hudson or for David or Paul about sports and the LGBTQ community, Athlete Ally, or anything else, please call in now, 212-868-0975. Again, that number is 212-868-0975. You can also tweet your questions to @Yetta Kurland using the hashtag AskYetta. Ask Yetta. All right, so the big news this week is Jason Collins. David, what are your first initial thoughts about this?
Well, my first thought was, wow.
Yeah.
That was, we obviously we've been waiting for an announcement from someone. Brendan Ian-Badeo had suggested that there might be up to 4 NFL players. So I think,
oh wow,
and I'm assuming that in other people's minds, that the first out gay pro team major league sports player was going to be, I said male, right?
Yeah,
going
well,
to be in the NFL. And turns out it wasn't. So I think that was a surprise on many fronts. But
so there's obvious intrigue here, David, because one of the questions I was going to ask, Hudson, was, did folks know about this? And I like the fact that people are it's very sportsmanship-like of them to be coordinating this. But I didn't know that there were 4 folks. So are they planning to roll out additional announcements? Is it all men? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think Brendan hinted at it, and I don't want to say that there are. I'm just saying that he had hinted that there might be up to 4. Not that he knew who they were. So
I would suggest that there are probably more than 4 lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender athletes, professional athletes in the world, but it's 4 that are willing to.
Given that an average NFL squad has 54 players, I think something around that. So I would venture 4 is pretty low for the league. But.
Hudson, what do you think? As somebody who has been a coach, a wrestler themselves, has worked in the world of athletes, is there a different proportion of the usual? I guess 10% is the normal percentage that we think of LGBT members of the community. Do you think that same percentage exists in the world of athletics?
Well, I think it's difficult to know. Given that Jason Collins is our first professional male athlete to come out while still playing, I mean, we still have relatively low numbers of openly gay male athletes. So certainly, there's a range between 10 and 2%, and even if you take the lowest range, we know that there are certainly closeted players in every league, and so I think Jason coming out is a huge moment for sports history, and a moment in which we're all going to remember, I think, fondly. But it does, we do have to remain cognizant of the fact that there is still a lot of work that needs to be done. I mean, the first is not the last, and we do still have a lot of education, a lot of conversations that I think need to occur before those numbers are going to grow.
You're listening to Hudson Taylor of Athlete Ally, David Badash of the New Civil Rights Movement, and Paul Newell here on Yetta Kurland Live, WWRL 1600 AM Equality Pride Radio. Call us with questions or comments, 212-868-0975, 212-868-0975, or tweet us at Yetta Kurland with hashtag AskYetta. David, explain a little bit what the response has been in the LGBTQ community. Has it been surprise? Has it been, expected but happy to see it? Has it had a big impact in the LGBT community?
It's been huge. I think it's been so incredibly affirming for LGBT people to have someone like Jason Collins come out and say, I'm 34, I'm black, I'm an NBA center, and I'm a gay man.
Yeah.
And that was incredibly affirming for so many people. And the response within, and certainly not just within the LGBT community, certainly, but outside, within the entire nation, has been overwhelmingly supportive. You've got President Clinton, you've got Chelsea Clinton. Jason Collins is going to be interviewed by Oprah. I think that's going to air on Sunday.
That is going to be awesome. That will be awesome. Yeah, I bet that'll be very well watched, too.
Yeah, and he was on George Stephanopoulos' Good Morning America this morning. So, it's been incredibly supportive. Yes, there have been some that have been less than supportive, and it would be, of course, all the people that we would assume would take that position, so not a surprise there.
So the gay community is happy, delighted, talking about it, not surprised, but proud and happy it's happening. Hudson, what's the reaction in the world of athletes, in the sports community?
I think it's absolutely mirrored everything that you just heard. I mean, we have not only we have the biggest sports stars who have tweeted and done interviews and shown support for Jason Collins, and I think it just reiterates this idea that in this day and age, by and large, most athletes, it doesn't matter if you're young or old or tall or short or as a matter of fact gay or straight. If you can play and play well, it doesn't really matter who you're attracted to.
Right.
And I think that's a sentiment that we've heard loud and clear from the athletic community, and one in which I think is only going to grow louder as more athletes feel comfortable and confident coming out.
Who are some of the biggest names who've been supportive?
Well, Kobe Bryant, Steve Nash.
Great.
Kenneth Faried are a couple of the players. Obviously, the guys that we work with Athlete Ally, Brendan Iambadejo, Chris Cluey, certainly have all been supportive.
That's great.
Just yesterday, we had Andy Roddick and Marty Fish, two tennis players, join our organization. So, there is a growing voice of straight allies that, making it clear that discrimination has no place in sports.
And in terms of, there's also been some pushback, right? Maybe you could talk a little bit about what happened with Leroy Butler and
So Leroy tweeted, "Congrats, Jason." I think that was like the entire tweet. And he was scheduled to be speaking at a church this Sunday, and he was informed that because of that tweet, and he was told explicitly that it was because of that tweet, that they no longer wanted him to speak to the congregation. And they said essentially, if you go back on what you said on your support of Jason Collins, we will still let you speak. And Leroy was like, "That's ridiculous. In no way I'm taking that back." So.
What's incredible to me about all of this too, maybe you guys agree, is it's not just the courage in standing up for the LGBTQ community, but then when folks have received pushback, the courage and the integrity to say that, in essence, that they're not going to be scared out of doing it, they're not going to recant.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an incredibly powerful example. I mean, at the end of the day, my passion behind this is solely because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that somebody could say or do that would not make me speaking out be worthwhile.
Mm-hmm. Actually, talk a little bit about that, Hudson. I mean, you have a great story about how you got involved and how this organization came into existence, Athlete Ally. Maybe you could talk to our listeners a little bit about that.
So I went to the University of Maryland. I was a couple-time All-American wrestler there, and I also was a theater major. So I was this kind of rare breed of athlete that lived between two very different worlds. And, I had friends that were coming out in theater, and it was a really easy or at least an open and accepting environment within theater. And then going back to the locker room and hearing my friends use that homophobic and sexist language so nonchalantly really put this issue into perspective for me. And so my senior year, I decided to maybe speak out and make a statement. And so I wore a Human Rights Campaign sticker on my headgear to start the season. And I did an interview about being an ally, and in response to that single interview, I got some 2,000 emails from closeted kids across the country. Wow. Who all reached out and said, Hudson, I see you speaking out as an athlete ally, and now I feel like I can join a sports team. Now I feel like I can go into the locker room and not be afraid. And that was the real catalyst moment for me of, if a wrestler can get that kind of response, if we can get football players and basketball players to be speaking out, that's going to save lives, that's going to change lives and make sport better for everyone.
David, when you hear a straight ally talking about having the kind of courage to do that and taking those kind of steps, how does that make you feel?
Well, let me frame it for you, and it's such a great question, Yetta. I'm 50 years old, and certainly today I am out and proud, and I live in New York City, and it's really not an issue. But I can think back 5, 10, 20 years ago when in New York City or not, it was really challenging. So to hear straight people like Hudson, who has done an amazing, amazing job, is again incredibly gratifying, incredibly supportive. It's wonderful, and I have to say thank you.
Absolutely, and I want to add just one thing is as I think integral and important the ally voices are. There is this Jason Collins coming out has been the catalyst for many people speaking out. And so I think it's important that we, in our interviews in society, in sports, we talk about and we show people that, there are LGBT people that are part of our athletic community at every level.
Yeah.
And while at the professional ranks we still have relatively few male athletes, Brittany Griner came out 2 weeks prior. That's a tremendous story. That's a role model and a leader and somebody I think is going to inspire millions of kids to maybe pick up the basketball and participate in sports. So I think we just have to make sure that we're telling not only the allies and I think that is an important voice, but also the LGBT individuals who are experiencing homophobia in real and courageous ways.
Powerful words and powerful actions. You're listening to Hudson Taylor from Athlete Ally and David Badash, the new civil rights movement here on Yetta Kurland Live. Guys, let's try to get some of our callers in. We're going to go to our first caller, Max from Midtown. Max, welcome to Yetta Kurland Live. You're on the air.
Hi, how's it going?
Good, great. How are you doing?
I'm good. I've been listening in. I've been thinking about high school sports and college sports, and trying to get rid of bigotry, sexism, and the homophobia from that. And, looking at the courage of more athletes coming out and more allies coming out, would it be something looking down the road in terms of funding for schools to stop the homophobia and allow more acceptance the same way that there's anti-bullying going on? Do you think that might be
It's a really smart. That's a really smart question, Max. And I'll throw it back to my guests. But I imagine that there's federal funding, Title IX, so forth. Be interesting to see if we could tie something, obviously federal. Unfortunately, LGBT folks are not protected, believe it or not, under federal laws,
right, but nor under Title IX. Yeah,
right,
specifically.
Right. But there might be state or city funding. That's a really smart idea. Hudson, have you guys thought about trying to do something from a legal perspective like that?
We haven't. What I would say is that I do get brought in by athletic departments in high schools and colleges about 50 times a year to talk and train the coaches, athletes, and administrators about why LGBT allyship is important. Mm-hmm. And kind of our next phase of all this is to develop a curriculum through which we can train college athletes to go back into the high schools and middle schools and have these conversations. Because, I think as your caller kind of mentioned, these prejudices and insecurities and questions begin far sooner than college or the professional sports. So if we're going to meaningfully break the cycle, we're going to do so by working with our youth.
Speaking of Title IX stuff, the WNBA has been long a leader in this. There's a lot of fantastic athletes in the WNBA and in other women's sports. Brittany Griner came out. She's a top recruit for next year. Came out last week, and barely anybody noticed. Why are women's sports so far ahead on this? And second, why, when we have this discourse, do we dismiss female athletes who are already out? Yeah,
is it better or worse that they seem to have less of a ripple effect in terms of their coming out? It's interesting.
I think that there are two reasons for that. The first is there are improper assumptions of masculinity and femininity within athletics. As a male athlete, you're assumed to be straight. As a female athlete, there's an assumption that you're a lesbian. So I think that's the first kind of piece of the puzzle. And the second is that there is still a male-dominated sports culture, and I think that there is a bit of sexism in the coverage of female athletics, and maybe we're not the media is not giving the headlines to the female athletes who are accomplishing unbelievable things on and off the court. So
Sure.
I think those are two things that kind of play into what you just said.
25 years after Billie Jean King.
Yeah, well, and maybe honestly, a step forward in unlearning some of the homophobia is a step forward in unlearning some of the sexism. So hopefully those go hand in hand. Let's go to our next caller. We're going to go to Sarah from Brooklyn. Sarah, welcome to Yetta Kurland Live. You're on the air.
Hi.
Hi, how are you? Good, thanks for calling in.
I wanted to ask how we, as a society, can ensure that sexuality is not a factor when judging the athletic world.
Well, I think it is a fact. I think what we're saying is it is a factor. But I'll. But how
can we ensure that society doesn't look at it that way? That we get rid of that kind of stigma.
Yeah. How do we? Certainly, some of the work that our guests are doing is part of that. But I guess Hudson, what are some other things? And maybe to our caller's question, what can our listeners do? I mean, I think there's a lot of folks who listen to this, like you said, the 2,000 emails that you got from, I'm assuming, mostly gay athletes, but I think a lot of straight folks listen in and are encouraged by what you're doing. What can the quote-unquote average person do if they feel compelled to help with the work that you're doing?
Sure. So I think strategically the thing that we need to do as an athletic community is try to redefine the honor code of what it means to be an athlete. So if we're going to, make sexual orientation a non-issue, we're going to do so by kind of redefining the heart of athletic integrity. Sportsmanship should be synonymous with allyship.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I think if we can speak to that'll help break down some of those prejudices. But in terms of the more tangible things that I think people can do, just be explicit allies. I think so often I talk to people and they're like, yeah, I'm an ally, I'm supportive, and I say, well, that's awesome. What have you done about it? They say, well, I don't really know. Nothing. So I think, one, use your virtual voice, tweet, Facebook, make videos, messages, because those can reach people who need to hear it. Two, wear your beliefs on your sleeve. A simple sticker, button, or T-shirt can really make a positive statement within your community.
I mean, literally on your sleeve.
Or on his wrestling helmet.
Yeah, absolutely. But then three, I think it all goes back to word consciousness and making sure, you look at the Mike Rice incident at Rutgers, making sure that we're conscious of how we speak to and about one another, not only when it comes to LGBT slurs, but sexist slurs or heteronormative language. As a coach, I need to make it clear to my athletes that they can talk to me if they have issues about their girlfriends or boyfriends. And those are things that I don't think we have integrated into our athletic dialogue that I think will go a long way towards making sport everything we know it should be.
It's really powerful words. It's great to hear wrestling coaches using terms like heteronormative. That's incredible. And you talked about this code of ethics. I mean, that is tremendous. How, as a wrestling coach, I imagine that you have a lot of influence on your athletes, the athletes that you're coaching. Do you do anything discreetly, specifically to try to teach or reformat what the ideas around integrity or the code of ethics are for athletes?
Sure. So I think at the end of the day, it needs to be organic. The coaches certainly have a power. There's a different power dynamic there. So if I think real change is going to happen, it's got to happen from the athletes. So one of the things that when I work with coaches, it's challenge your players to create their honor code at the beginning of the season. Challenge them to define what their core values are. Right? Get it down on paper. And what you'll find is, by and large, that language is inclusive. So that then when homophobic or sexist or transphobic language is used, you can correct it not because it's right or wrong, but because that's not who we are as a people.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Speaking of, just you mentioned earlier that one thing that people can do is use social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, especially with younger folks. And interestingly, we've got a Twitter question which somebody sent to #AskYetta.
Go ahead.
That about that, asking if there is a hashtag that they can use to say they support folks like Jason Collins and other LGBT athletes.
That's a good question.
That should be.
Ally.
We should make it up right here on Yetta Kurland Live tonight.
Should we go with Athlete Ally?
Athlete Ally, let's do it. So if you're listening in,
I'm all for that.
You want to show your support, use #Athlete Ally. There probably is another one out there. We just don't know. Maybe one of our listeners
there's no hate. You can do no hate.
Yep.
I think more specifically, you could do stand with Jason or with Jason. I mean, I think this is an enormous moment in not only sports history but in American society. So speaking directly to showing support for Jason, I think gives this conversation context. The principles behind being an ally and being respectful are one thing, but when we can relate it to an individual who has struggled, who is dealing with this stuff, I think that will speak louder than anything else.
Yeah, Stand With Jason is a great hashtag. So, and I know we've talked a lot about gender, but let's talk about race also. The quote that people focused on when he in the statement in Sports Illustrated directly spoke to race as well as sexuality. How is that important? Is that important, and why is that important?
Well, I think it's important because we all have intersecting identities that are shaping the way that we conduct ourselves, and certainly are influencing the things that we're comfortable or scared of. And I think that there are I can't speak as an expert on this, but I would say having the intersection of a racial minority and being gay certainly makes it more difficult. And
also maybe some of the I think some of the assumptions, like you said, about gender construction is also assumptions that maybe are not accurate about race. When Proposition 8 passed in California, the first thing that a lot of white gay organizers did was point their fingers at communities of color, blaming them for the problem. So, I think it's important that we deconstruct that as well.
I mean, as we talk, the part of why sports is such an important part of our culture, particularly with regard to LGBT issues, is because it is so identified with masculinity. And we often think there's only one kind of masculinity, and clearly that's not true. There are many masculinities, and race is a big part of that. And so, African American masculinity is different from different cultures and so forth, and I think that is important that he came out and said, I am a black gay man, and and I think that expressed part, though not all, of who he is.
David, we have just a moment or two left for the segment, but what do you think, what are your predictions for next steps in terms of how this plays out? What are the next steps in our efforts to break down barriers and open the doors to the athletic world for the LGBT community?
I personally think that we're going to see more LGBT professional athletes come out. I think that Jason Collins has certainly open the door, and I think we're going to see a lot more people doing this. So I think that is wonderful. It's going to take time. It's always going to take time. But the advances that we have made, if you think about it, 1 year ago, I think it was this week, Joe Biden went on Meet the Press and slipped and said that the president and he do support same-sex marriage.
Right.
That's where we were 1 year ago this week, and think how far we've come.
It's really true. Last thing, really quickly, Hudson, can you let us know just where can people go to learn about Athlete Ally and the Yogi Berra Museum?
Yeah, so athleteally.org. Check us out. We're also on Twitter, obviously, at Athlete Ally. And as of today, we partner with the Yogi Berra Museum, which is in Montclair, New Jersey. So coming this June, we'll be doing an exhibit on allyship, the roles that allies have played throughout sports history for various minority groups. And we'll also be doing a series of programming on inclusive coaching and, how to train our athletes to be the leaders of tomorrow. So check that out as well.
Yeah, great. Hudson, thank you for taking time to come on the show with us. Thank you for all the incredible work that you're doing. We'll be watching your work. And David, as always, thanks for coming on and giving us your opinions and perspective. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll be talking to Athena Reich and others here on Yetta Kurland Live.
Spreading the word.
I believe that gay couples deserve the same legal rights as every other couple in this country.
Equality Pride Radio, 10 p.m. to 12 midnight on AM 1600 WWRF.
Me and my girlfriend walking down Main Street, and smile after smile as we go by. Doorman says,
"Hey, when you gonna get married?"
Boy, the world can change in the blink of an eye. Suddenly,
That was Athena Reich, who is in studio with us tonight, one of my favorite reoccurring guests here. She is an award-winning actress, singer, and songwriter. She's a regular contributor here on Yetta Kurland Live. We're delighted to have her back in studio. Athena, thanks for coming in.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Good to see you here. And she's brought with her Victoria Libertore, who is an actress, writer, curator, and MC. She is the creator of 6 solo shows, most recently No Need for Seduction. No Need for Seduction will be playing at Dixon Place in the Lower East Side this month. Victoria, thanks for coming on the show with us tonight. Thank you. And then we have Leigh Fondakowski, who was the head writer of the Laramie Project and has been a member of Tectonic Theater Project since 1995. She is an Emmy-nominated screenwriter, and Stories from Jonestown, her first work of creative nonfiction, was published by the University of Minnesota Press earlier this year. Congratulations and welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
If you've got questions or comments for Athena, Victoria, or Leigh about LGBTQ culture, arts, performance, or anything else, please call in now, 212-868-0975. Again, that number is 212-868-0975. You can also tweet your questions at Yetta Kurland using the hashtag AskYetta. Again, Ask Yetta at Yetta Kurland. Athena, so what's going on?
Yeah, it's all about gay theater right now. I mean, Tony Award nominations are crazy.
Yeah, I heard there's a couple of LGBTQ peeps who've been nominated. Tell us about that.
I feel like it's our time, man.
Yeah, well, I always feel like it's our time.
Yeah.
And yes, exactly.
It's our time. Kinky Boots, the musical, has gotten 13 nominations. Billy Porter is Best Actor. He's like this out, beautiful gay actor, man. And Ari Gold, who's a big award-winning singer-songwriter, was just writing on Facebook. He was like, just today, he was like, "That's my ex-boyfriend," and all bragging, and everybody's bragging, and like,
that's exciting.
It's so exciting. And Nathan Lane, who's in Nance, who plays I haven't seen it yet at Lincoln Center, but it's like, oh, it looks amazing. It's queer, drag queen and stuff, and he got nominated. It's amazing. But you know who's left out?
Who's that? Athena Reich.
Yeah, I'm left out. It's coming. It's coming. Okay, I'm not bitter yet.
Yeah.
I got time. Bette Midler and Alan Cumming are left out. My friend directed Alan Cumming.
Yeah. And Fiona Shaw's left out.
So many people.
Leigh, you know, we just had a segment earlier talking about the LGBTQ kind of presence in sports and athletes these days. Do you think we've come a long way in terms of theater, acting, and performance, in terms of what's happening now and 10, 20 years ago?
Definitely. I definitely think the queer narratives are continuing to expand and open up, and Victoria's piece is a great testament to that.
Yeah, in fact, 10, 20 years ago, the only way that LGBTQ existence could kind of exist in drama and performance was almost making fun of or pejorative representations. That's changed as well. Tell us a little bit about No Need for Seduction.
Sure. No Need for Seduction is about a woman who takes a trip of a lifetime, a romantic trip of a lifetime, and she's overcome a lot of obstacles, both internal and external, a lot of hardships to come to this place of letting herself have this really beautiful life and beautiful relationship. And while she is there in Bali, her past starts to come in and haunt her, and sort of she comes very close to the edge. Maybe she does. You have to see the play of sabotaging everything.
You know, and years back, when folks would produce lesbian or queer video or movies, it often would be for specifically the LGBTQ community. Do you find that that's the case now, or do you feel like this is more for just a broader audience, gay and straight?
I feel this piece is for a broader audience. I think it's really about commitment in general, and any two people facing, you know, all the beauty of commitment and all the fear that comes up when you cross of going deeper into commitment.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
Totally terrifying. And I read that your show is also about like loving somebody unrequited where they don't love you. Why do
unrequited love
Why
is
do we do
itself
that?
terrifying.
That used to be my favorite kind of love.
Yeah. Well, everyone has to go through that phase.
Yeah, that's good. I like that.
There's a proposal, an imminent proposal in the play that our heroine is terrified of and is sort of avoiding during this whole trip, and then it comes, and you have to see the play to see what happens, but it kind of, you know, it's a little sketchy whether she's going to make it through.
And there is a butch femme element to it, for sure.
Yeah, we always like a good butch femme.
Yes! But I do think it's really universal. I mean, I've had a lot of, when I've done little snippets of it, 5-10 minute readings to kind of get feedback, I find that my straight friends are like, oh my God, I related to that point when you're on the stairs and your partner's going slow and it's driving you crazy. And you think, do I need to end the relationship because they're going slow on the stairs?
Totally. Why are we like that? Do you have the answers?
Well, I have a lot of crap in my background, but maybe I can't speak for other people.
But the thing that also drew me to the piece as the director is it's an intergenerational story. So there's a young couple on the trip and there's an older couple on the trip. And so they talk about relationships and marriage and their relationship to marriage. And for my generation, when I was a kid, I never conceived that marriage would be possible in my lifetime. And it's just sped so rapidly to this conversation.
It's amazing.
It really has. And you know, Dixon Place is such an important venue, obviously, just being able to produce work in New York City in independent theaters and small venues. Maybe you could talk a little bit about the importance of places like Dixon Place for people doing the kind of work that you're doing.
Yeah, and Ellie is part of a generation with, you know, Ellen Stewart and all those people who were opening the doors to queer artists at a time where they had nowhere to produce their work, and those downtown theaters were a haven for queer artists who became very well known later on, but their first plays were done at places like Dixon Place and La Mama.
Yeah, La Mama. Wow.
Yeah. And the first place I performed professionally was Dixon Place, when Ellie was like, do you want to do something? And that was 13 years ago. And now I can't think of anybody else who would commission a woman doing a solo show that's not famous, not Carrie Fisher, paying me well to do it, you know, and so, it's amazing.
Yeah. Really important. We're making it up as we go along. We're talking about LGBTQ performance here in New York City on Yetta Kurland Live. Call in with questions or comments. We're going to go to our next caller, Christopher. Christopher, welcome to Yetta Kurland Live. You're on the air.
Thank you so much for taking my call.
Sure.
Hi, Christopher. How are you?
Hi, Athena. I'm well. Well, I'm delighted that my show is going to be such a huge hit because you're in the cast.
Yeah, this is actually my director.
He's calling to check in.
He's calling to check in.
Athena, she made it. Christopher, she made it here on time. She's in studio. We're good.
Awesome. She's great. Like that. Oh yeah.
Yep.
Christopher Carter Sanderson, we're opening a show again because this is all about theater.
Yeah.
We're opening a show in June called I Hope They Serve Beer on Broadway. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it, Christopher?
Sure. Well, the full title is I Hope They Serve Beer on Broadway by Tucker Max. And what I'm doing is taking his material and totally transforming it through the medium of theater into something that's tremendously inclusive and really brings everyone, I hope, into the dialogue about sexuality. There's certainly gay characters who are depicted as intelligent and who actually quite teach Tucker a lesson and certainly get the better of him during one of the stories that we theatricalize.
Yeah, and can you tell us who Tucker Max is for those people who don't know? He's such a huge celebrity.
For those people who have good taste, let me explain who Tucker Max is.
This is lowbrow.
Tucker Max is the dean of frat bro literature. He is the the author of I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell and Assholes Finished First. He's, much despised by many for his frank depictions of bro culture, what I would call very lowbrow, beer-drinking frat boy culture in an extremely large amount of graphic detail, which most people, even who really, really hate it, have to admit is pretty frickin' hilarious.
That's great.
It's going to cause, it's going to start conversations, and people may love it, hate it.
That's art. Love it, hate it. That's what it is. It exists.
It's going to be funny,
As a matter of fact, that's true of Tucker's writing. I actually feel that our theatrical piece will be loved by everyone because mainly of its cast, who is Athena, and is an incredible rainbow of inclusive people up there talking, saying these words that he's written. And I believe that what's missing from the literature is that it's all about, sort of one side of things, and it really doesn't well depict the pain that's inflicted and the sort of consequences of this kind of lifestyle, and of course the great dangers of hatred. And I feel that the theatrical medium is exactly the right medium to absolutely transfigure that into high art. I believe that really everyone who sees it will love it very much.
It's a 10-person cast, so it's a big
wow.
cast. Yeah.
Where is this happening?
Well, we'll be at Roy Arias Theaters, which is 43rd Street and 8th Avenue, right there in the theater district. And very close to a number of larger theaters, which we believe we may be moving into rather soon.
Sounds really exciting, Christopher. Is there a website that people can go to learn more about it and check it out?
Thank you. There really is. It's theatermania.com. Theater with an E-R, theatermania.com, and just look up Beer on Broadway, and it'll come right up.
Awesome. Christopher, thanks for calling in and letting us know about that.
See you at rehearsal.
Thanks for chatting with me. Bye, Tina.
Bye.
And other listeners, if you want to tell us about exciting shows that are happening in the area, please call in. Let us know, 212-868-0975. Again, 212-868-0975. And while we're waiting, let's go back to No Need for Seduction. There's a similar phrase, no need for introduction.
Really?
You know what's amazing? Victoria, you've done, this is your 6th one-woman show, is that correct?
It is.
Yeah.
I do get along with people, though.
I was going to say, it's why a one-woman show about relationships?
I know. I just fell into the form in college, and I love interacting with the audience directly, and so the solo is a great form for that.
Mm-hmm. I first met Victoria. We did a gig together with Molly Equality Dykeman, the comic. Andrea Alton is her real name, or born name. And I do a Lady Gaga impersonation, and she does Liza Minnelli, and she's hilarious. People were dying. Michael Musto loves her. This is an amazing, funny performer. So this show is it's like, is it funny? What is it?
It is funny. Victoria plays multiple roles, so it is a solo performance, but there's lots of characters that come to life through her. Huh. And it's convenient that she can write their lines, so she can control the narrative. She can put words in other people's mouths. She can tell her version of the story.
Interesting.
And some of those people are all real life people, so they'll all be in the audience.
This goes back to the unrequited thing. Yeah. Who's your which is your favorite character to play? If you had to choose one.
I think playing the woman I go on the trip to Bali with, my girlfriend on the trip. Because she's Butch, and Butch is so fun to play.
And why is that?
Yetta wants to know.
The mystique Yetta of the Butch.
Aww. You're blushing. I'm blushing here on Yetta Kurland.
I'm a lover of Butches.
Oh, gosh, I feel so happy. I'm so happy. Let's take our next caller. Terry Muse from Long Island, Strong Island. Terry, thanks for calling in. You're on
Terry Muse.
Yetta Kurland Live.
Terry Muse. Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, my pleasure. My absolute pleasure. What's going on? How are things in Long Island?
Oh, it's good here.
Yeah.
In the burbs. Sometimes it's nice to live 5 minutes from the ocean. Sometimes it's not.
I thought you were going to say 5 minutes from Manhattan. I figured maybe you had a helicopter that we didn't know.
from the ocean, an hour from Manhattan.
I
have a question for you ladies. I know you're concentrating on LGBT issues in the theater, but I have a question about Jason Collins coming out.
Yeah.
NBA player, and I was wondering what you thought about it, because my first reaction was, okay, this is a big deal, and I was thrilled he did it, but women athletes have been coming out for 30 years, and everyone was saying he's the first, and he just broke all these molds, and I was thinking, where are all the women who trailblazed before him, all the lesbian women who came out, who weren't getting any Nike, commercials and
Billie Jean King, etc.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you asked that question. We had Hudson Taylor, who is Athlete Allies, as a group Athlete Ally, and one of the things he said I thought was really interesting. He said that the assumption of male athletes is that they're all straight, and the assumption of female athletes is that they're all gay. Yeah. And that unfortunately sexism in media, shocking that exists. I mean, you maybe have heard of that as well. That we don't necessarily report as much on that. But I think that's an interesting question. What do you think? What do you guys think about Jason Collins coming out?
It's an interesting point. I mean, I was an athlete. I proudly played, I was saying, with Rebecca Lobo in high school, who was in the WNBA. But I remember when the WNBA first started out, and you'd go to Madison Square Garden, and it was like really trying to say we're not gay.
Yes, I remember.
And it was very heterosexually based and trying to get families there, and so there was like a real distancing from the Dykes, who were the huge following for the WNBA.
And it's like crossing a room in half, because you're wanting to make it a family show, you're wanting to make it so that people feel comfortable, and yet you're being closeted and denying who you are, so it kind of taints it in this way, right? Yeah. I just think it's so much better when you're affirming yourself and you're actually teaching families and children that it's kind of just okay.
Well, two things are happening at once. I mean, people are starting to come out that make some people uncomfortable, but the other thing is people are becoming more comfortable with gay people, queers. So, these things are happening.
I'm still very uncomfortable. Terry, in fact, I have a question for you. Why aren't there more gay people in theater? Oh, she's
on?
She's gone.
Oh, no, I wanted to ask her.
Maybe she'll call back and answer that question. Or maybe she's avoiding the question. I don't know.
Although several years ago, not even that long ago, a theater director said to me, "Why are there no lesbians at the Tonys?" And I said, why? And he said, because they don't give a Tony to stage managers.
Wow.
And I was devastated by that comment. I was like, the only way you can be in theater as a lesbian is to be a stage manager. And then the year later was Lisa Crone was nominated and Lee Silverman made it. And so but there was a perception in gay culture, male gay culture, that the women should be the tech people, the dykes should be the tech people, and the men should be the artists.
Yeah. I mean, as a lesbian working, having actress in theater, I often feel very alone. I feel like I'm surrounded by straight women and gay men, alone in my sexuality, not alone. I'm surrounded by people, but but yeah, I often feel like I'm trailblazing. I was in a theater works tour, years and years ago, and the kids there, we were all kids, they'd never met a lesbian and they were in theater because they were from the South and they just moved to New York, and I was like, really? So they
never met an out lesbian.
Of course, exactly. But that's the assumption that in theater that all the men are gay and that all the women are straight, whereas of course that's
but
not
then it's
true.
also just, I mean, I love men, but men always get more credit than women. Like not to make it all about me, but one of my solo shows was about a serial killer, female serial killer, that nobody's ever heard of. And she allegedly killed over 500 girls.
Oh my God.
Wow.
And nobody's heard of her. And they say Dracula was actually based on her. And I'm like, there's a glass ceiling for female serial killers.
Oh my God.
That's
I
pretty
want to
funny,
be
Victoria.
about that. Okay. Well, we could get away with murder. Is the flip side of that.
Yeah, there's always an upside to ism, I feel like. It's like in the LGBT community, we don't have to necessarily get married. We can have civil unions. We can have domestic partnerships. It's not just black and white. And I'm delighted to say that Terry has rejoined us. Terry, welcome back.
I have a question.
I don't know what happened there.
I think I asked you a question. I don't know what happened.
I don't know. My phone went dead, but I called back because I wasn't done. I wanted to hear more.
Yeah. What were we talking about, guys?
Just talking about women,
gay people.
I was just thinking that it's definitely sexism, meets the LGBT community. I mean, I think the issue was, I do think it's harder for women in these areas, in sports, and so.
Well, your colleagues were just talking. I mean, the question I asked you when you left is why aren't there more gay people in theater? But actually, it sparked a conversation where sexism actually happens, and it's difficult also in your world to deal with that intersection of sexism and homophobia as well, I imagine.
Oh, absolutely.
In theater too.
In theater.
Terry, I recognize your name, Terry Muse. Are you the writer, Terry Muse?
Yes. Yes. No, I have a memoir. It's a poetic memoir called Overexposed, and it deals with childhood sexual abuse.
Oh, wow.
Wow. And is that something that is in print now? Can folks pick that up in the stores?
Yes, it is. It's out by J.B. Stillwater Publishing, and it's on Amazon.com. And again, overexposed, and it's a memoir dealing with childhood sexual abuse, and there's real hope at the end. So I know that sounds like a gloomy topic, but it really deals with reclaiming your life, and a lot of the pieces come out of a one-woman show that I did in the city, and so it's
so you do
hopefully
one-woman
gives hope
shows.
to survivors. That's my goal.
You've done one-woman shows.
Have you ever
as well.
performed at Dixon Place?
I haven't. I would love to, though.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah.
You should.
You should.
My one-woman show is Anatomy of a Doll, and it.
Look at that. It's good you called in.
Thanks for taking my call.
We have some
and,
similar themes.
Thank you. Are all awesome over there, and.
Will you give our listeners a website address that people can go to
they can
learn more?
find my book on my own website, terrymuse.com.
MEWS, correct?
MUUSS, 2 U's and 2 S's. It's a lot of double letters there.
MUUSS.
I've heard a lot about her work, so it's, I'm going to check it out.
My producer spelled it MEWS, for which I apologize.
I understand that. I understand it's a weird last name. So.
Yeah, well, Yetta is a weird first name, so...
My last name's weird, too.
What is weird? I think we need to talk about...
Go weird names.
Go weird names.
Thank you, Terry. I'm going to try to squeeze in. We have just a couple minutes left, and I want to give a final plug to No Need for Seduction. But let's take our last caller, Allie. Allie, welcome to Yetta Kurland Live. You're on the air.
Hey, Yetta. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Great. So I just wanted to let you and all of your listeners know that next Monday, May 6th, from 4:30 to 6 p.m., we're going to be having a mayoral forum on animal rights with Bill de Blasio, Bill Thompson, John Liu, and Sal Albanese. And this is going to be everyone's chance to ask the candidates where they stand about issues that affect the four-legged community.
That's awesome. Will there be any performance art there?
No, there will not.
No dogs and tutus. Dogs and tutus.
Dogs and tutus. But that does sound tremendous. So, and I'm glad that you're calling in because we did ask people to call in to tell us about stuff happening. So, is there a website, or can you give us another pitch on information for listeners so they know where to go?
Sure. They should go to nyclass.org/May 6th.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Allie. So that's going on. Let's talk a little bit. We have just a couple of minutes left here. No Need for Seduction is happening at Dixon Place. Where can people go to learn about it? And when is it? Has it happened already? Has it started?
No, it happens in 10 days.
10 days? Are you nervous?
I have a healthy sense of nerves. Yeah.
Do you guys get less nervous about opening night as you get more and more experienced in doing this stuff?
No.
It sort of seems like you're going to be less nervous, but as soon as the house lights go down on opening night, you're terrified.
Yeah. Oof.
Yeah.
So
3 weekends.
3 weekends.
It's the 10th, 11th, 17th, 18th, 24th, 25th, which is Memorial Day weekend.
Uh-huh.
So if you have friends in town, family, bring them.
Great.
Yeah. And there's I read that you're an animal lover.
I'm a big animal lover.
Are
there animals in the show?
There are not live animals, but
That's
there's
good.
talk of animals.
A dog is a central figure in the transformation of the character.
Wow. I have 2 Italian greyhounds.
Oh.
Salvatore and Luca.
Oh.
Awesome.
I gave them Italian names to honor their Italian heritage. How do you feel about that, Athena?
I think it's really thoughtful and sweet. It shows your soft butch side.
Yes, my soft butch.
You're trying to get her to blush again the second time.
Yeah, that's my goal, to make butches blush.
All right, so we have, 47 seconds left. Is there anything else that our listeners need to go check out in the world of theater and performance?
DixonPlace.org. I don't think I said that.
DixonPlace.org. They can go. They can learn about your amazing show, other shows that are happening there.
I've got things going on. AthenaReich.com, AthenaReich.com.
AthenaReich.com.
Yeah, and you know what? So you wrote the Laramie Project. You were
one of the
writers. You know Romaine Patterson?
I do. I know her very well.
Yeah, she was a guest on The Curious Cook. Which
Wait,
won
The Curious
an
Cook?
award.
Yeah, it did.
We won
Not
the
my
LA
episode, though.
The whole thing.
The whole darn
LA
thing.
Web Fest.
Wait,
I got
Curious
best
Cook's-
host. I won best host.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
She really is the best host.
Yeah, she's great.
The hostess with the mostest, Athena. Thanks so much, guys, for coming on air.
you.
We look forward to checking out your shows, and I'm sure we'll see you here again on Yetta Kurland Live. Tune in next week, Wednesday night, 10 p.m., Yetta Kurland Live, WWRL 1600, Equality Pride Radio.
The preceding program was independently produced. The views and opinions expressed were those of the program host and guests, and do not necessarily reflect those of WWRL, its staff, or management.